Today, we are going deep on one of the most chilling chapters in modern American history. We're talking about Charles Manson and the cult that followed him down a truly terrifying path of manipulation and murder. So picture this, it's 1969. It's the height of the Summer of Love, an era all about peace, freedom, and counterculture. But then a series of unbelievably brutal murders carried out by a group calling itself a family just completely shattered that ideal. This story has horrified people for decades now, and it really all boils down to this one central, terrifying question. How did one single man manage to turn his followers into cold-blooded killers? To even begin to understand how something like this could happen, we have to go back to the beginning. We need to look at the making of this master manipulator. Charles Manson's life started rough. He was born into neglect back in 1934, and his entire youth was basically a revolving door of reform schools and other institutions. So by the time he gets out of prison in 1967 and lands right in the heart of San Francisco's counterculture scene, he's already a pretty seasoned criminal. What's so fascinating in a really dark way is how all that time locked away actually shaped him. See, he didn't just do his time, he was studying people. He was learning the mechanics of control. So he comes out of prison this charismatic, deeply manipulative person with this almost uncanny radar for finding and exploiting vulnerable people. And it was that very skill that let him start gathering this group of followers that the world would soon come to know as the Manson family. So who exactly were these followers? Well, they were a commune. Mostly young women who were swept up in the 1960s counterculture. They were looking for something, love, freedom, a real purpose. And Manson, he zeroed in on that need. He would use tactics like love bombing to make them feel special, and then he'd isolate them from everyone they knew to really cement his control. And this was the core of his whole deception. It was a classic bait and switch. He promised them love, but what they got was psychological manipulation. He offered them freedom, but he demanded total control. They were searching for enlightenment, and instead he force-fed them this toxic cocktail of fear and fanaticism. Now, the crucial piece of the puzzle here is how he saw himself, and more importantly, how he made them see him. He wasn't just some leader, oh no. He presented himself as a prophet, a kind of messiah figure who had these incredibly distorted and dangerous beliefs. And those beliefs, well, they would eventually spiral into the infamous ideology that led directly to the Helter Skelter murders. At the heart of Manson's whole philosophy was this bizarre prophecy he called Helter Skelter. He preached that a huge, apocalyptic race war was just around the corner, and he convinced his family that it was their job, their destiny, to help kick it all off. And here's where the story gets just surreal. Where did he get his proof for all this? Pop music. He twisted the lyrics from the Beatles' White Album, insisting that the band was sending him secret messages, telling him to put his violent vision into action. This illusion finally exploded into 2 nights of just unimaginable horror in August of '69. On August 8th, his followers went to a home in Los Angeles and brutally murdered the pregnant actress Sharon Tate and 4 other people. The very next night, they did it again, killing a couple named Lino and Rosemary LaBianca. And this, right here, is maybe the most chilling part of his control. Manson was the absolute mastermind behind it all, but he didn't physically participate. He didn't have to. He orchestrated every single detail from a distance. Having convinced his followers that committing these awful acts wasn't just necessary, it was righteous. As you can imagine, the murder sent an absolute shockwave across the country, leaving behind this lasting legacy of terror and fear. When the trial finally started in 1970, it was a media circus. It completely captivated a terrified public. All the bizarre details of the cult, Manson's completely unhinged behavior in the courtroom, the chilling loyalty of his followers, it was all broadcast to a horrified world. So, the legal outcome? It was pretty decisive. Manson and several of his key followers were convicted of first-degree murder and conspiracy. They were all initially sentenced to death, but just a couple of years later, in 1972, California temporarily abolished the death penalty, so their sentences were automatically commuted to life in prison. Charles Manson spent the rest of his life behind bars, eventually dying in prison on November 19th, 2017. But his death, it really did very little to diminish the dark fascination with his story. His infamy, it seems, is here to stay. So why? Why does this story still have such a powerful grip on all of us? Well, for one, Manson became this dark symbol of the 60s dream gone wrong. The case also totally changed how the public and even law enforcement understood the dangers of cults. And really, it remains a terrifying, essential case study in sociopathy and the power of mind control. Ultimately, the whole thing is just this grim reminder of how charisma can be twisted into a weapon. And it really leaves us with one last, pretty unsettling question to think about. What does our own enduring fascination with a story this dark truly reveal about ourselves?